It's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Now, in today's video, this is part of my Love to Death series. I'm going to link up the playlist below where I talk about people that are killed by stalking, by stalkers, by ex-partners who cannot accept that the relationship is over. And this is a subject very close to my heart because this is something that happened to me many years ago. Luckily for me, I'm a survivor of stalking. If you want to know more about that, you can find out about that in my book, Confessions of a Spanish Teacher, which is available on Amazon, which will also be linked into the description box. So anyway, this is the lady, the young girl we'll be talking about today. This is Molly McClaren. And Molly McClaren is the victim that we're going to discuss in this video. So she was only 23 years old. She did not know when she set off to the gym on the 29th of June in 2018 that she had the devil following close behind her. Molly had the absolute temerity to finish a relationship with a man that she didn't want to be with anymore. And unfortunately, this man, he was not going to take that lying down, was he? You know, it's very, very sad. You know, there needs to be some sort of education for people. And it's not only men, it's normally men, to be fair. It is normally men that do these things, but not always. Often it's women too. People can't accept when somebody finishes a relationship. You know, things happen. You fall in love with people, you fall out of love with people. And it's not for us to try and make somebody stay in a relationship with us. So, yeah, he wasn't going to take that lying down, and he joined a long list of young men and women, of course, that just cannot accept it when a relationship is over. So they adopt this attitude of, if I can't have them, no one can. You know, it's a control thing, isn't it? It's like, well, they don't want to be with me, but instead of just accepting that, I'm going to kill them, make their lives a misery, and in extremes, kill them. And the other thing is, it's like they will say they love this person. You know, I remember when I had my stalking incident, and after that all came, you know, to an end, which, as I say in my book, you would find out how that transpired in the end, what happened. And his best friend said to me, "Oh, well, at least you know you've been completely loved." And I just thought, what? It's nothing to do with love. You know, if my ex-partner loved me, he would have just let me go and let me be happy. I might have gone back to him. You know, the thing is that they say that if you love someone, let them go. And if they may come back to you, but they may not, but that's their choice. Just like it's your choice. You know, so quite often I've noticed these people, they're quite promiscuous themselves. Quite often they're having other relationships. But if they find out about their partner or even ex-partner having a relationship, they go mad. It's like an insecurity inside or something inside. Maybe it's because they're doing things, you know, seeing other people, that they're convinced that their partner or ex-partner has seen other people. But of course, if it's your ex-partner, why shouldn't they see other people? You know, it's like, how dare you? How dare anybody tell somebody how to live their lives? If you don't like it, just stay away. Anyway, so yeah, Molly, poor Molly, beautiful Molly, was stalked, followed, and eventually murdered after visiting a gym in broad daylight in the car park at the Dockside Shopping Centre in Chatham, Kent, the UK. And she was stabbed 75 times. Let's let that sink in for a minute. Imagine how long it would take you to stab someone 75 times. You know, if you just make that motion with your hand 75 times, you know, and the person that you were stabbing wouldn't just be lying there taking it, well, maybe at the end after they'd passed. But in the beginning, they'd be fighting you. You know, the rage and the anger that you have to feel, the psychosis, whatever. So that's not something you do to someone you love, is it? Obviously did not love Molly at all. Just wanted to control Molly. Was just in a rage that Molly had the temerity, you know, to finish this relationship. The judge described it as a frenzied attack. Let's chat. So Molly, beautiful Molly, she was a student at the University of Kent. She was in her second year of a degree in health and fitness. And she was tipped to get a first. Now that resonated with me because I too was tipped to get a first. And then unfortunately, because of events that happened in my last year at university, I did not get a first, but I did pass, you know, I did get 2-1 degree. But, you know, is there sort of like almost a jealousy there in that? You know, she was doing well, wasn't she? She was doing well. It's like, if you love someone, you'd be happy for them to be doing well, though, wouldn't you? You know, her partner, and then when he became her ex-partner, he should have been happy for Molly if he loved her. But obviously he didn't anyway. Now, Molly had been through some mental health issues, and I think this is key as well to how Molly let this horrible person into her life. She'd struggled with mental illness and bulimia when she was young. She suffered from anxiety and panic attacks. And these issues made her very empathetic towards others. And empathy, it's a sort of a blessing, but can also be a curse. Because when you're empathetic towards others, you can easily let in dangerous people because they sniff it out in you. You know, these narcissists, like Molly's attacker, only concerned about themselves, they sense that you're a soft touch. You know, Molly will have felt for this person. And he lied about his own mental state to try and garner sympathy from Molly and make it. And eventually then when they got together, and then when she wanted to finish it, that would have made it very difficult for Molly to finish this relationship, because she would have felt for this twonk. You know, she would have felt for him. She wouldn't have wanted to hurt his feelings. She probably would have been worried if he was going to go and do something to himself. He probably threatened that many times, I expect. I wonder if he did. I expect he did, because that would be a way of getting round someone like Molly, who had empathy. It's quite exhausting being an empath, because you're always sensitive to other people's moods and emotions. Anyway, Molly, she was very popular. Everyone said how her smile would light up a room, and she was a shining light in this crazy world that we live in. She had so much to offer. She had a bright future. It's always these people that we need in this world that end up getting taken out of it. You know, we need Mollys in the world. And, you know, not only her family and her friends lost her, but the world lost her. And society in general and the world in general needs people like Molly McLaren. You know, that should be taken into account with sentencing, I think. Anyway, yeah, so much to offer, a bright future. And then, of course, what went wrong for Molly is in July of 2016, she matched on Tinder, good old Tinder, with a person who couldn't be any further away from her character. And this person is Joshua Stimpson, who was 26 years old. So this is Joshua. He couldn't have been more opposite from Molly. He didn't like Upper Room when he went in it. He didn't care about other people, or, he only cared about himself. He didn't even care about Molly, only about what she could do for him. And as soon as she showed any signs of independence, and doing well at university, etc., he was gone. He was gone angry, and, got angry with her, tried to control her, insulted her, threatened her, stalked her, and eventually he murdered her. So this is Joshua, and he lived in Waltham near Rochester in Kent in the UK. He was born in Stoke-on-Trent, which is actually up the other end of the UK. He worked in a warehouse. His co-workers described him as having a bit of a dual personality. And what he had in common with Molly was interest in the gym, but also issues with mental health. Now, I think he played on that. The problem is, I've seen this on many crime videos that I've watched. These narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, whatever you want to call them, they don't have normal feelings. So what they do is they copy people's feelings. They're very clever. They don't have normal feelings in the sense that they can feel empathy and those kind of things. But what they can do is copy it. They can copy it, and they can tell people what they know that will push their buttons. That's what he did. That's what Joshua did. He pushed Molly's buttons because she was a nice person, and he knew it. It probably won't have only been her. He's probably done it. Well, I know for a fact he's done it to other women as well. Someone like him, they would, really literally sniff out a nice person like Molly. He had treatment for depression when he was at school. They met in person in the November of that year, of July 2016. That's when they first met in person. Now, one thing I want to talk about is he told Molly he was bipolar. And I just want to talk about bipolar for a moment, even though, as you'll find shortly, wasn't necessarily true what Joshua told Molly. But of course, when then Molly told her mum about that, she was worried for Molly, because bipolar, I think, they used to call it manic depression, didn't they? People are scared of it. They don't understand it. It is scary if you know anyone with bipolar, which I do. Very scary at times. They go up, they go down. It's rare that they're just resting in the middle. They take medication normally until they start to feel better, and then they think they don't need the medication anymore, and then the whole cycle all starts again. And it is worrying. It is worrying. But you know what? For Molly, this would have made it difficult, if not impossible, to leave him in the end, because she'd be worrying about him. If she left him, he told her he's bipolar. Would he go into a depression? Would he do something to himself? And Molly would feel responsible for that, even though, of course, she wouldn't be, because if he did end up doing anything to himself, that would be his decision. But this is how they get you. And the ironic thing is, a lot of people with bipolar, they don't really care about other people. If you mention to them, oh, such and such going for a depression, they hope they don't do anything to themselves. I've literally heard people with bipolar say, oh, well, it's their life to live. That's their choice. They're totally dismissive of everybody else, but they use it themselves when it comes to, not that they all do. So this is what I want to say. People who are bipolar, they they're living with a big thing every day. It's hard because they go up, they go down. When they go down, it's horrible, but it's also horrible for the families of people and friends and loved ones and partners to deal with it. I think they need expert help in dealing with people with bipolar as well, to try and understand it, because it's so difficult. Now, apparently in the UK alone, 1.3 million people have bipolar disorder. That's 1 in 50 people. And being bipolar increases an individual's risk of self-deletion by up to 20 times. And individuals with mental health conditions are more often, though, the victims of violence rather than the perpetrator. So that's something that I just want to put straight before we continue with this. I mean, it turned out this twonk, he wasn't bipolar. He made it up to get sympathy from Molly. But I just want to explain about bipolar. It doesn't mean that someone's more likely to kill you. It means that they're more likely to kill maybe themselves. They are prone to violence sometimes when they're in these psychotic episodes, their highs and lows, but you have to learn how to deal with them. They're more likely to damage property than they are people. That is something that they do. That's 100% certain. So apparently, and I looked all this up before coming on and doing this video, because I think this is an important thing to talk about. People with bipolar disorder are at a moderately increased propensity for violence, but they are not inherently violent, and the vast majority are not any more dangerous than anybody without bipolar. Having said that, the risk is higher if there is substance abuse involved, alcohol, drugs, etc. That does lead to more complications. So apparently, according to the research I did, bipolar disorder is more linked to increased risk of self-deletion than of aggression towards others, and early death because of that, or because of substance abuse. The thing about bipolar is people quite often who are bipolar, when they're on their, on one of their, it's like a roller coaster, isn't it, of highs, lows, and in-betweens. Not many in-betweens from what I can see. It's either, they're on the crest of the wave, or they're like literally, on suicidal. But the thing is that is what can cause a lot of bipolar to end up with an early death, either through the substance. They tend to be reckless with their own safety. Someone who is bipolar, I've read things where, like, if they drive and they're going through a bipolar episode, you need to get the car keys off them and hide them, because they're likely to go out in the car, just go and do something, reckless. They're reckless at times, but it's more recklessness for their own safety than for other people. So self-deletion, unfortunately, it's very emotional, this actually, because I know quite a few people suffering from bipolar, and self-deletion is the most common cause of death amongst people who are bipolar. So anyway, I just wanted to explain that, because it's an issue that comes into this video. And then, of course, this man, he wasn't bipolar. He just used that as something to say to Molly to get sympathy. It's an attention-seeking strategy. He was a total manipulator. His manipulation, probably the more he found. In fact, let's get his photo off there and get Molly's photo on there for a bit, just to cleanse our palate, because just the thought, just looking at him is horrible. So yeah, it all started off promising, like relationships do. He was loving, it was the love bombing, isn't it? Loving, attentive, blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. And then he started to get possessive. As time goes on, he started to get possessive. Even with her family, that's what they do, try and isolate you from your family, from your friends. So you feel like you've got nobody to talk to. Whereas she was popular and had a big circle of friends and, was close with her family, etc. His social circle was small, if not even non-existent. He could not socialize with people, and that's not because of bipolar. That was because he's a sociopath. People blame so much on mental illness, but some people really are born bad. And if they have substance abuse as well, I think he was taking substances, just makes everything worse. Then he quit his job, apparently. So he's quit his job so that he can stalk Molly, in my opinion. That's why he didn't want to go to work, because while he was at work, he didn't know what she was doing. This obsession was developing. This is something that needs to be, this happened with my ex-partner. It becomes an obsession. I really do think they cannot help it. They cannot help it. I don't know what the answer is. They almost need to be arrested and sectioned, because it's like they can't help it. They try to switch off. My ex-partner, his own mother, said to me, he tried his best to switch off, to not be obsessed, but he just could not help it. And I do think they can't help it. It's like it builds in their mind, this obsession, and they can't control it. So that's when I think authorities should step in and do what, I'm not sure quite what. Thing is, when it's a grown adult, you can't make them take, tablets that might control their obsession. They just decide what they're going to do in their own heads, don't they? And they're grown adults. How do you make them do it? I just feel like it's very difficult to protect people against stalkers, unless you're Holly Willoughby and you get a police detail come round and guard your house, which, the average person in the street doesn't get that, do they? They're lucky if they even get listened to by the police. What's the answer? So at the time, Molly, she was revising for her exams, but he would not let her be. She was trying to say to him, look, I need time to be on my own to revise for my exams. No, he wouldn't have it. He'd turn up, he'd be stalking her. And then she tried to finish with him and found it difficult. You can imagine, can't you? I could imagine that every time she even tried to finish with him, he probably threatened all sorts. Sometimes these people, they threaten your family. Look what happened with the crossbow guy in Bushy. He went round to his ex-girlfriend's house and murdered her mother, her and her sister. This is what these people, this obsession is dangerous. So the people that are the subject of stalking, they worry about their family. They actually worry about the perpetrator, because I'm sure this guy, 100%, he will have told Molly that if she finishes with him, he's going to do something to himself and it'll all be her fault. I had that said to me a few times. And you feel bad. You think, oh my God, they're going to do something to themselves. But the thing is, what do you do then? You go back to them because they're threatening you with doing something to themselves? You can't do that, can you? That is nothing more than threatening and blackmail. So, as you can see, they did have happy times. They had holidays, in the earlier days before he started getting too possessive. I wonder because this is what happened to me. I was at university at the time. I was enjoying my degree, obviously met a lot of people there. And now, the thing is, when you're at university, you're in a little bit of a bubble, and the other people that are studying your subjects, that's what you've got in common. You make friends with other people that are studying the same thing as you. And one night, I was invited to a party, like from one of the students that I was studying politics with. And my partner said he wanted to go as well. I said, you won't like it, because we'll all be talking about politics and you'll find it boring. And then he enjoyed politics, but he wasn't doing a degree in politics, so he wouldn't know the things that we were talking about. So we'd be talking about our assignments and the lecturers and, And I knew he would not like this party. Anyway, he insisted on coming along because he didn't want me to go on my own, really. I realise now that was the jealousy control thing. And we're at this party. He's sat in a chair. I was sat on the floor chatting to a girl about I don't know, some aspect of our course. I can't even remember what it was, but something that unless you were actually studying it, you wouldn't be interested in. And we were in this sort of voluble debate, like enjoying a good sort of crack about it and, debate about it. And probably, agreeing with each other with some things, disagreeing in others. You remember how debate used to be years ago in politics? And then suddenly I sort of turned around. I got this sort of sense of someone glaring at me. Turned around and my partner, he sat on the chair glaring at me. And he just said to me, what are you leaving me out the conversation for? And, he just started going on and causing a scene, really. So we had to leave the party. And I said to him, I told you not to come. Told you not to come. You wouldn't have been interested in that conversation I was having. Wasn't blanking you out of it. I just got lost in the conversation. Anyway, so I would imagine maybe this kind of thing was happening with Molly. The things she was interested in, although he was interested in the gym and stuff like that, she needed to revise for her exams. And he didn't respect that. He would turn up at her house. When someone, I hate it when anybody turns up at my house unexpected. But imagine you're revising for your exams, you've finally got an hour that you can sit down, you're worrying because you tipped to get a first. That's quite a lot of pressure as well when someone tells you you're tipped to get a first. You feel like, oh my God, I've got to get first. I mean, it's nice when they say that to you. I remember it being said, and unfortunately for me, it didn't happen, but it's nice when they say it, but you do feel sort of under pressure. So there's poor Molly. She's trying to revise for exams. This guy is not letting her. So he is. So she tried to finish with him. He wouldn't accept it. But there was a lot of, emotional blackmail went on there with him. But she'd finally found the wherewithal to finish this relationship, and she did finish it. So did he accept it? No. Did he buggery, as my dad would have said? Did he buggery? Sorry, apologise for that. It never used to be a swear word. Maybe it is a swear word now. I don't know. I'll probably get cancelled for that. But she tried to finish it. He wouldn't accept it. And you know what? He started doing this. Now, luckily for me, when my stalking happened, there was no social media. Thank you, God. No technology where someone could put, something on your car to follow where you were going, or all these things that stalkers do these days. But the main thing they do is stalk on social media, don't they? And that's what he started doing with her. He started posting on social media about her. He said that she was taking drugs. He said, and he would tag friends and family in these posts. And one thing that my ex-partner did, that, in those olden days, when we had address books, do you remember? I've still got an address book, actually, thank God, because a couple of times when my phone's broken or I've lost my phone, all my numbers are written in an address book. I am old school. It's like I'm very old. That's what we used to do, write everything in an address book. And believe me, you might be grateful if your phone never gets stolen, etc. And my ex, he stole my address book. I didn't realise until after we'd split up. He had taken my address book and he would phone all my family and friends trying to find out where I was, because I was very lucky enough to be able to move from place to place. I moved quite often to stop him finding out where I was, thank God, because I think I would have been a case like Molly's. That's why I cover these cases of the love to death people, because stalking is terrifying. And people who stalk, they are absolutely obsessed. They're so difficult to stop, and it's so terrifying because in the end you are a nervous wreck because nobody listens to you. You know, or certainly when it happened to me, well, I think it happened with Molly, the police they can't watch you 24 hours a day. Molly was murdered in a car park in broad daylight by this man. Police couldn't save her. As I say, she's not famous, she's not Holly Willoughby and gets 24-hour guard around her house. Anyway, she did go to the police. The police did contact him, to be fair, made no difference whatsoever. And then sometimes I wonder, you know, unless they're actually arrested, you know, that I still he made some comment to the police. You know, he didn't care that the police were onto him or coming after him. He just did not care. He was obsessed with getting revenge. To me, it's revenge. Getting revenge on Molly for finishing with him. And you know, he's such a good manipulator, this guy. But you know, he even had other girls, probably that he'd met on Tinder also, checking up on her, finding out where she was. He would send them to places where she was. Could you imagine you're out on a date with a man and he says, oh, do you think you could just go and check up on this ex-girlfriend of mine, what she's doing? It'd be like, there'd be two words would come out of my mouth, and the first one would begin with F and the second one would begin with O. Don't let a man help you stalk. You don't help a man to stalk his ex-girlfriend. You know, why did they do that? Why did they go along with that? I mean, he probably manipulated them into it. You can't underestimate a manipulator, of course. Anyway, so 12 days after they broke up, after him doing all these Facebook posts and stalking, etc., she goes to the gym. Who turns up at the gym? He does. And we're going to have a look at a video. Not only turns up at this gym, and he starts exercising right next to her. So let's have a look at that CCTV. So Molly's there, just exercising. She doesn't realise it, but he then comes in. So he's obviously stalked her. He knows she's at the gym, so he's followed her to the gym. He then, you know, the gym's empty. I don't know what time it is, but she realises that he's put his thing down next to her. He starts exercising in her space, really. He'd followed her there anyway. So she messaged her friends and family. She goes over to him and says, are you following me? She says, why aren't you at work? He says, it's none of your business. She messages, as I say, her friends and mum and says, think he might hurt me. And mum says, just come straight home. You know, you wouldn't know what to do, would you, in that circumstance? Anyway, he then gets up and leaves, gets his stuff together. You can see he's going out to the car park, going to pick up his bag first. Off he goes, cool as a cucumber. He's got murder in his mind. Doesn't look like he's just about to murder someone, does he? In that bag, he's got weapons. He has every intention. This was premeditated. And he goes out into the car park. Now, of course, Molly, she doesn't know what to do. And as I said, her mum said, you know, come straight home, which I think she may even regret now. But it's not her fault, is it? She didn't know what to do. You don't know what to do with psychos like this. You know, he was there, followed her there, stalked her there, and went out to the car park to wait for her. Horrible, isn't it? Let's put Molly back up. I don't like looking at pictures of him, to be honest. So what happened next? Let me just find So he leaves. And then when she goes out to the car park, he attacks her, stabs her 75 times. When it came to the court case, it turns out he has stalked 2 previous girlfriends as well. So he had history in stalking, which is worrying, isn't it? What do you do with these people? What do you do? I honestly can say I don't know what you do. I'm at a loss, to be fair, to say what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is. All I do know is there should be something. Anyway, he was found guilty. He was found guilty. He was seen afterwards. He was caught on dash cam, wandering around the car park with blood all over him. I think I might have that video. Let's have a look. Yeah, so we do have this. This is the car. Look at all the cars in this car park. There's people everywhere. It's broad daylight. There are cars everywhere. And poor Molly, she still was not safe from this lunatic. She still was not safe. So he went to court. He admitted manslaughter, but he denied murder, probably on the grounds of, having bipolar. But then it was during the court case that it was found that he had not been diagnosed as bipolar. So, he was just using that to get sympathy from Molly, wasn't he? So he was sentenced at Maidstone Crown Court, and the judge, Adele Williams, sentenced him to serve a minimum of 26 years. I still think that's not enough. So, look at the years he took off Molly, took off her family and friends for spending with Molly, the year he took it off society for having a bright light in the community like Molly, and that's all he got. Sorry, I know he's not necessarily going to get out after 26 years, but it's not much, is it? For what he did, he premeditated it. He followed her. This girl should have been safe in a public place. You should be safe everywhere, but if you can't be safe, wandering around a car park, getting into your car in a car park where there's lots of people, in broad daylight, going to the gym, doing these normal things, you just think these attacks. We've had an attack lately, a woman on a train. There's women walking their dogs get attacked. Here's a car park in the middle of the day. Where are you safe as a woman? Disgusting. Something needs doing. It gets talked about all the time, but nothing ever changes, does it? Anyway, that's the story, if you like, of what happened. Now, there's a little bit of a sad, even more sad thing to say now. Let me just stop sharing that. I'm going to put Molly's picture back up. Her family did set up a charity in Molly's name. Here it is. And let's have a look. What was it called? The Molly McLaren Foundation. And it was set up by friends and family to provide advice and funding for those with eating disorders. Now, unfortunately, they had a Molly Fest every year because apparently she loved her festivals, etc. Unfortunately, this charity has been wound down now, which is very sad. They had a final Molly Fest with performances from local bands. And the thing is, Molly, she'd struggled with bulimia. She'd written a blog about her experiences to help others before she was killed. And at least it had a few years. This charity had a few years, and let's hope it helped some people during those years. Eating disorders are terrible things, aren't they? They're eating disorders are just like drugs or alcohol or, these things. Food. We have a strange relationship with food, don't we? You've got people who eat, overeat and then throw up. You've got people who just overeat and then, they become obese, and then everyone hates them because they're obese, but you don't look into the reasons why. Food is a comfort for people. People don't understand that. A lot of people who've been abused when they're children as well, they will eat because they believe that will make them unattractive to their abuser. It's like to try and get them to leave them alone, even almost. There's so many complex issues. It's not just, oh gosh, look, they're overweight, they eat too much. It's not as simple as that. It's not only physical issues often when it comes to being overweight, or then you get people who are bulimic where they eat and then they throw it up and they're underweight. But they're eating maybe as much or if not more as somebody who doesn't throw up again. Then you've got an anorexic, people who can't eat. That's another issue. So complex. So it's a shame that the foundation got wound up, but I hope while it was open, it saved some people in Molly's name. So the thing is, like every one of these type of videos that I do in the Love to Death series, as I say, I feel very, this is a very personal thing for me because of my experiences. There are a few things to learn, aren't there? First thing, just like everything that, and this comes up a lot in videos that I do, not just in this series, social media means nothing. You look at social media and you see people all smiley and happy and everything's bloody brilliant. And you think, oh, why can't I have a life like that? Why can't I have a lovely boyfriend like that or a lovely girlfriend like that? Why is my life not like that? You don't know what their life is really like. In fact, sometimes I think the more you see on social media, the less likely they are to be happy, because I don't know about you, but I've been places and been out and thought, oh, yeah, I'm going to take some photos, going to take some videos, and then you end up having a good time. So you don't have time to take the photos and the videos. If you've got to prove to the world what a good time you're having, that really, you're probably not having a good time, are you? That's the way I look at it, and I've experienced it with friends. I've seen them, what they do, what they post, and then I think, well, actually, I was out with one person, and they just literally sat on their phone for the whole time that we're having dinner. They never looked up from their phone. And then what they're posting is, oh, having a lovely meal out, with Vicky and blah, 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 blah. Never spoke to me because they're on their phone all the time. It's a load of bollocks, social media. So that's one lesson that you can always learn from most probably true crime videos that I present. The other thing is, be careful of Tinder. Tinder, not only Tinder, any social media app, but anyone. When you meet someone in a pub, you don't know unless other people know them. You don't know anything about them. You don't know about their past. And when somebody starts telling you about their mental health issues, yes, be sympathetic, of course, but you've got to be careful too. He lied about his mental health issues. He said he was bipolar, but he wasn't. And he used that because he knew that Molly, she was sensitive, she was empathetic. So the other thing is, now I'm going to do some videos on this, these psychic shields that you have to put around yourself, because you cannot be sucked into other people's dramas. You can be empathetic to people, but the trouble for empaths is they can't divorce. They soak up the feelings of the other person. And they can sense when someone's lying. They can sense when someone's, when they're happy or they're sad. And then, but the thing is, then when you think someone's lying, but you don't want to believe it, or, because then the empath in you is like, oh no, they're bipolar, give them a break, sort of thing. It's just being an empath is hard because nothing's black and white. Everything's a grey area. But people like him, everything was black and white for him. It was she left him and that's it, and she has no right to. It wouldn't, you couldn't have talked him into the fact that she had the right to leave him, I'm sure. I don't know what the answer is, but I really do think these obsessive people, they do need sectioning, in my opinion, to protect the other person. But then how would you know if, you know, in any event, you can't be sectioned forever. It's very difficult. So, of course, the answer is not to get involved with these people in the first place, but it's easier said than done. So what normally happens is you get involved with them. It doesn't happen overnight. I was with my ex-partner over 4 years before, you know, I mean, there's red flags, there's clues, there's signs, but you sort of, because the relationship is often good in other ways. You know, and in many ways, my relationship with my stalky ex, that was one of the nicest relationships I've ever had. There were lots of things that were nice, but I realise now that's because he just went along with anything I said or did, because to please me, because at that we weren't married. So always trying to get married. And we didn't get married, thank God, because so he was still trying to make an effort, but he was very possessive and clinging. That's what did it for me in the end. I felt suffocated. I felt absolutely suffocated. He never hurt me, you know, physically or anything like that. Just always make me feel guilty about going out with my friends or make snide comments about people. You know, he was even jealous, you know, of my family, and he said horrible things, you know, but it didn't happen overnight. That's what I'm trying to say. So it takes a long time to come to the decision that you're going to leave someone, because when you know, and then you've got your friends saying, oh, but he really loves you. Oh, he'd never hurt you. He loves you. You know that he would hurt you. I knew he would hurt me if he got the chance, because he didn't want me to be with anybody else. That's why I kept moving, you know, and people thought I was daft. The police wouldn't listen. I think the police are a bit more, you know, do listen more now maybe than then. But, you know, I was literally told that by the police that unless my ex did something, they could not do anything. So in other words, yeah, if he killed me, then they'd arrest him, or if he attacked me, they would arrest him. But until he actually did something, even though he was following me, stalking me, finding out where I lived, I had to keep moving, all sorts of things that he was doing, but they weren't enough. He had to actually do something violent before they could arrest him. Now, that was 40 years ago. Not 40 years ago, 30 years ago. So, yeah, just be very careful who you get involved with. Test them early on in the relationship. You know, I know it's easier said than done. I don't know what the answer is, but look at this beautiful girl, and she just joins the long list of beautiful girls and men that have been killed by stalkers, by people could not accept that the relationship was over. So I'd just like to say rest in peace to Molly. As I say, the lessons we learn from this is, you know, don't believe everything you see on social media. Be careful who you meet on dating apps, especially Tinder. I mean, there just seems something, you know, you're just swiping left or right and picking someone just on what they look like. But there's more to relationships than that, isn't there? In fact, you know, to me, the photo means nothing. It's, you know, you read their bio and you try and find out what they're like, and then, you know, you talk to them on the phone or on, you know, don't meet up with them instantly and fall into a relationship with them. It should take time, just like a normal, you know, relationship with someone not off a dating app. People move too quickly these days, don't they? You know, and I've done it. I'm not saying I haven't done it. I've done it myself. But maybe it's the society that we live in. You know, everything's now, isn't it? Fast-paced. People meet and within a week they're living together or whatever. And then they're having a baby or, you know, it's just all happens so quick, doesn't it? So a candle for Molly, and as always, my love, my prayers go out to her family and friends. They're the ones with the life sentence. They've got a longer sentence than the twonk. You know, their life sentence will never end. They will miss Molly forever. You know, that will never end for them. And they won't get to see her get married, have children, you know, all those things that you hope that you can look forward to with your kids. They won't have that. And as far as he's concerned, he's going to go in the hellhole. I haven't put him in the hellhole yet, but that's where he's going. Okay, so thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about Molly. You stay safe out there. Look after you. You are the most important person. And until I see you again in the next video, may your God always go with you. But always, please as well, please like and subscribe for more videos. Bye.